I've saved the best till last. This is JTL. You've come to JTL. We do apprenticeships in electrical and plumbing. That's all you need to know. If you want to an apprenticeship in electrical or plumbing, come to us. Go onto our website, JTL. If you're an employer, you can go onto there. Register with us and we'll go through a process with you. If you're a student, you go onto our JTL website and register with us, and we'll follow you all the way through the system. We'll help you find employers. If you haven't got an employer at the time to do the apprenticeship, we help you. We're a provider. We were set up by Unite Union and the Electrical Contractors Association. We're a charity. All we do, 95% of our business is electrical installation, and we also now, well, the last few years we do plumbing as well, to a lesser extent, but we still cover, we still do level 3s in both of them. This kind of A-level standard. Both apprenticeships we do for plumbing and electrical are 4-year apprenticeships. They're quite a commitment, so we do, check everybody that comes through our books to make sure that they can get through this scheme. It is quite an in-depth scheme, but anyway, let me get back to my presentation. I'm going to also talk to you about the perfect storm we've been through as an organisation through COVID. You can imagine trying to educate people where you used to go into classrooms. Now we're doing it from home, and and when we went through COVID, so we've gone through quite a lot of changes. And JTL itself, we're a national provider. We don't deliver in Scotland or Ireland or the Outer Hebrides or wherever that is. We've just got 4 major regions there. These are postal codes, which might not need much to you unless you know the postal codes off by heart. But we've gone to 4 regions. Before COVID, we had 8 regions. We now have 4 regions, and they're quite significant regions. One region has another country in Wales. We've got basically the red area, which is north. We've got the eastern area that is just on the side here. We've got the western side, which includes Wales and down to Cornwall, and then we've got the southern area, which is the London area and that bottom corner. So 4 major areas. Right, let's work this. So what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about actually this perfect storm we've been through in terms of what's happened to us over the last 2 years, and in particular, let's look at sort of the government initiative, which is the apprenticeship scheme. Everything's changed on their side as well. Absolutely. I've been in the business for 25 years and everything has changed. Nothing's the same, other than we produce electricians at the end of the game. But the Skills Funding Agency that funds the schemes, they've changed. They changed format. They introduced the digital apprenticeship service, which is where all employers have to apply for their funding now to get funding for the apprenticeship schemes. It used to come directly through the training providers and the colleges who used to deliver, but now it goes through the digital apprenticeship service. You mentioned the levy that was mentioned this morning, that comes through that. So every employer has to now register with the digital apprenticeship service. And if you're a sole trader, they wouldn't know about these sort of things. So when they brought this in 2 years ago, it was quite a change in terms of, we couldn't see what the employers were doing. We were trying to help them to go through this. So we went through quite a significant amount of changes in terms of that. Over COVID, we originally had a £1,000 grant for if you were 16 to 18-year-old. So that was an initiative to get employers to take on more apprenticeships. Through COVID, they brought in a £2,000 incentive grant, and then throughout COVID they then moved it up to £3,000 incentive grant, and that was for any age, the 2,000 and 3,000. That caused us so much problems you would not believe. You think giving money away would be quite easy, but the criteria with the government in terms of how they had to go onto the DAS site, how the employer had to claim that grant themselves, caused a lot of problems for employers, and we tried to help. Again, this was introduced and we had to learn through this process. We know it off by heart now, and we can help employers, and we do send out a lot of information, a lot of YouTube clips that they can follow, and to sort of step by step. But it isn't, you think it's because it involves money, they they're putting information into this site that is like their account details, and I've had to ring up employers, and I can imagine a training officer who deals with the employers. I'll ring up an employer and say, oh, we need all your account details and your sort code and all this sort of stuff, and you can imagine if somebody asking you that, who you like to. So it's quite interesting, sort of. But we moved on. This is just sort of the background. The grants have stopped now. Thank goodness. I'm still sorting out grants from when they stopped. We've still got some employers that have missed out. A lot of people have missed out on these grants. And we're doing a level best, to try and to sort out these issues that they've had. So that's sort of kind of the government side, the top 3 points. But then we move on to Ofsted. Ofsted are the body that quality assure us as a training provider in the colleges. They changed their system of inspection over the last 2 years. And they're looking more at, as it describes there, the intent, the implementation and the impact more. So they're looking and they're talking to learners now and employers. They're not so much statistically biased. So, if everybody achieves that, they used to say, oh, you're really good. Now they want to talk to the employer and the learner and find out about things like we mentioned this morning. They go into mental health, they go into, how we've supported them through this process, and there's a lot more there involved. So even our quality aspects have changed. So the government changed how they funded us, and a lot of private training providers went to the wall through that sort of change. So it's quite significant. And Ofsted, who monitor the quality of us, they changed their approach. And remember, they changed that approach where it's more involved with talking to the learners just as we're going to COVID. So we don't see the learners as much. We're not, we're not influencing learners as much because we were sat at home. We couldn't go out and see people and stuff like that. JTL itself went through a significant amount of changes. We went, like I say, from 8 regions down to 4 regions. We brought in, we had to adapt quite quickly. We were bringing in online application processes. We were bringing lots of distance learning and assessment materials in. Our start process, we moved our start process from a paper-based system to an online system, which we did in a matter of months, not in weeks in effect, in terms of how we had to adapt to this sort of COVID pandemic. And what this meant is we were learning as we went along, and we didn't get it all right. We did things like we brought in a new application process, Get My First Job, and this involved the learner again going onto a website, putting all their details in, registering with us, so as they can be on our scheme and going through. But just simple things like that. They'd forget the password that they've got to go into. So we had a lot of to and fro. In the past, you'd be there with a piece of paper, you'd be face to face with them, and you would deal with them, and you would resolve these issues. So even our application process became all that more difficult. Even getting a list of learners to send to employers so as they could interview, all sorts of things happened to us. Toolkits and books, we as an organisation, we offer free toolkits and all the books that they want for the courses. We actually write the books as well. We offer them. We had problems through the pandemic of issuing them out. We had the Edmondsons provide our toolkits for the electricians, and their system was that we write out to the learner and the employer, and the learner and employer would go and pick their kits up from their nearest Edmondsons depot. But the logistics around that through COVID were a nightmare. So a lot of learners didn't get the toolkits. We're now catching up. In the last probably 6 months, a lot of those learners have actually received the toolkits and books. ECS tests, we do probably about 2,000 ECS tests a year, so that's a nice link from the last speaker. But we did have, we sort of resolved those sort of issues. I mentioned assessment in terms of getting the learners on board and making sure they're right. We had online assessments that we brought in. We brought in knowledge, skills and behaviours, which is a new thing for apprenticeships. We use DocuSign to get documents signed, because all the government forms have to be signed. we had issues with that. It was timed out, things, all sorts of things went on. We introduced a new customer relationship package to track some of our employers, so as we can deal with all these sort of things, called Salesforce. And we, you know, these are just some of the electronic, so we went through a massive change in terms of an organisation. So everything from the very start to the very end was changed. One of the good things we did do, when we did have the change around with the regions, we introduced apprenticeship support officers. As an organisation, we felt that all those sort of mental health issues and the custodial side that we deal with, we brought in a whole team of 30, we actually recruited 30 staff through the pandemic that basically contact all the learners. Their role is just to contact learners, and they ring and have contact with those learners every 6 to 12 weeks. They contact them, they talk to them about any sorts of problems. Over the COVID period, it was absolutely fantastic because we did come along with a lot of mental health problems, safeguarding issues and stuff like that. So this was another port of call. Instead of the training officer that they have running through the qualification who would pick this up as they go out on site, we've got this team of people now who are contacting them constantly every 8 to 12 weeks. And they were going through a checklist and talking to them and getting more and more information. And we found that they did, you know, a sterling job in that period of keeping, you know, helping those learners through what was quite a challenging period. And that's going to develop, and it's a new system that we're bringing in that, you know, to cover off. It's about, you know, dealing with the 20% off the job training and all those sort of things. They can pick up on more of the support side of that we do with the learners than we have done in the past, whereas the training officers just focused on doing the assessment, getting through that qualification, making sure they do that. So that was one of the actual good things that came out of the changes. Our performance through this time, this is just a little bit. The figures this covers sort of the East Midlands more than just, it's not the West and the East, so it's just more about the Eastern region. So 228 was our target and we achieved 236. Through this period, recruitment has been good. You know, in spite of COVID, we still, you know, we busted our sort of targets in terms of starts. In my region, the Eastern region, we had a target of about 500 starts and about 742 as we stand today just for this last year. So we have seen a massive increase. Some of that will be the incentive grants and stuff that's brought it. Some will be just the churn in terms of people coming out of the 4-year scheme. So it is interesting. We have had an increase in starts. There's a gateway period now. The qualification has changed, and this is coming towards, you know, in terms of when they get to the end of that, they get to a gateway period where they've got to have completed all their MVQ, their functional skills, all the elements of the apprenticeship before they then can go in to do the endpoint assessment, which is the AM2S now as such. So how did we do? 2020 to 21 is the most current success rates that have been published by the government. And as you can see there, for frameworks, which is the old apprenticeship scheme, we're 9% above the national average, and for standards, we're 7% above the national average. That's good for JTL, and that's really good, but I always look at the actual success rates themselves at 51% and 59%, you know, of passing. That to me is not good enough, and we have seen a slight decline in terms of overall success rates. Our target for as an organisation is 80% success rate. So to me, there has been an impact of COVID and there is a delayed effect, and I still think we're going to see some of that petering out over the next 12 months in terms of, as much as colleges did put on distance learning packages and helped students to learn at home, it's still not the same as coming to college and going through those practical tasks, so there is a degree of catch-up at the moment. So, changes to come for JTL. We are recruiting staff. In my region in particular, I have 26 main assessors. I'm moving up to 34. I'm recruiting at the moment. I've got 7 staff I'm recruiting at the moment. We have had quite a churn in staff through this period. Our chief executive left us a few weeks ago, so we'll have a new chief executive in post soon. We sent our employer survey. We know we haven't given a good service to employers in terms of not being able to go out on site, so you lose those links. So we realised that we sort of haven't had that joined up relationship with them. So we've sent out a survey just recently. It's come back just to see, you know, their feelings about this time. So as we have a baseline now to naturally go back and actually improve that. So in terms of the way we're going to work now is my team that are basically mainly assessors, they now are going to increase that contact with the employers. I want to see them out there now from in terms of where they've been before, where they've been working from home. You know, the mileage will ratchet up to where it is, where it used to be before we went into COVID. And my expectation is greater now. In fact, I'm expecting to see the employees at least 4 times a year as a minimum now. I want them out there to sort of build those relationships back.